I read this.
I'm going to call the City Commission work session to order. And will you please call the roll?
Yes. Commissioner Frank O'Donnell.
Here.
Commissioner Rachel Lyle Smith. Here. Commissioner Rocky Smith.
Here.
Commissioner Denise McGriff.
Present.
And Mayor Dan Holliday will be absent this evening.
Thank you. All right, so our only item on the work session agenda is the Malala Avenue Streetscape Project. Mr. Lewis, I was looking for you. Switch sides.
He's usually over there, isn't he?
We are, we're bringing something new to you tonight. Have you ever heard of Malala Avenue before? It's a new boulevard.
Not built yet.
Where is it, John?
It's in the heart of your downtown.
Is it in Malala?
It is not in Malala, no. So thank you for dedicating an hour of your very busy schedule to this topic. We have some new graphics for you tonight. The idea was to try to take on a handful of issues that we've kind of heard from the community concern-wise on this project. So myself, Dana Webb, our city engineer, Fred Wismer, they're going to step up here because they're going to take on a pretty big portion of this presentation. We are going to kind of try and share this, this effort, but they're going to carry a pretty heavy load of that. So Key Corridor obviously serves our business community, and it's a major employment land area. Community College, the Clackamas County Red Soils campus, serves about 14,000 vehicles today. It's projected to serve more in the future, probably get close to 18,000 vehicles a day. Portions of the corridor, I won't say the whole corridor because a lot of the corridor is pretty nice, but portions of the corridor are pretty unfriendly for bicyclists and pedestrians. That's why we were successful in getting the Metro Enhancement Grant for $3.8 million, and that's why we have been continuing to move through the design phase and are ready to go to construction. This is considered the third phase of the Malala Avenue Boulevard and Bike Plan project, which was adopted in 2001. This was followed by the Corridor Safety Enhancement Plan, which is really about access management along this boulevard. So access management to some folks means a safer boulevard. Others, it means government restricting their ability to do things, right? So, but it's really about limiting driveways, narrowing driveways. It's about prohibiting left turns where there's a lot of potential for cross traffic accidents, whether it be between a vehicle and a vehicle, or a vehicle and a bicycle, or a vehicle and a pedestrian. So that's really a big part of this project. Aside from the pedestrian and bike lane facilities, it's about controlling access in a way that makes for a safer, more efficient boulevard. So with that, the next slide, Dana, is really the agenda. So again, we talked, I've had some conversations with some of you about some of these topics. So crossing spacing along the corridor. By the way, have you noticed this large, it's almost life-size print of the corridor? And it's, our project was a little less than a mile, but with the addition of consideration from Warner Milne to Highway 213, it's a little bit over a mile. So we'll step through that and use that graphic as we need. We think we have slides that represent that as well, but we wanted to make sure in case you or the audience wanted to take a closer look at that graphic, we would have it available for you. So we want to look at the Malala Avenue. That's where we're going to start, is on kind of the left side of the map here. So Malala Avenue, Beaver Creek Road, and look at those options. We've got several to talk through, some of which are things that we've been looking at. Other things are things that were brought up by the commission to consider. The mid-block crossing at the Southridge Center, or a lot of people think of it as Black Rock and Wells Fargo access, the First Street signal, and the mid-block crossing at the post office. Anything we can talk about in terms of that we continue to have time for with regard to responses on our comment log. We did bring back the project funding. Some of that information was provided in the last work session, but we didn't get to it, so we thought we'd bring that back, and then just make sure we're moving forward in the right way. So this is where we're going to start. I just wanted to point out, so we've got some good comments on this, but really this is the northern section of the corridor where we see the most congestion in the entire corridor. It's a wide, expansive intersection. And as such, there's lots of competing issues with this project. Right now, we are still recommending the dual lefts. That was one big element of this. And with that comes a compromise of converting one of the through lanes to a left turn lane and leaving the remaining through lane to be a through right turn lane. And so those are kind of the major elements of the changes. Some of the challenges with this that we saw was as you go through the intersection heading southbound, there's that drop lane or merge lane that has been problematic from the get-go and something that we've heard a lot of frustration from the community on. There's the inadequate northbound left turn lane storage. So if you're heading northbound on Molalla Avenue and want to get to the community college, or not to the community college, to the Clackamas County Red Soils area, so wanting to make that left turn, we're seeing problems with that left turn pocket not having enough storage because it's trying to accommodate both the turn movement onto Beaver Creek and the turn movement into the shopping center. And, the Wells Fargo Black Rock driveway. Also accommodation of the not so far away, that dual left turn. So right now you see that yellow striped median. An original plan or the plan there has been to, in the not so distant future, probably 5 years out, we need to look at adding a second left turn lane there. So this plan accommodates that. And then for safety concerns associated with the current left turn that we have on the southbound side. So as you're heading, who had the pointer, by the way? There you go, Dana. So this turn lane right now that has the provisions for a permissive signal that gives you the flashing signal as the oncoming traffic has the green. Those do help with efficiency a bunch, but they also add an element of unsafety or an unsafe condition because, vehicles have to be ready to yield to the oncoming traffic as well. So with this configuration, they'll have a dedicated turn lane there. It won't allow for the permissive lefts. So that will make that much more safer. And then one thing that I think Tilson will talk a little bit about is the right turn at Highway 213 and as we look at the far end of the corridor, one of the things that we're trying to do is to reduce the amount of trip traffic on this corridor. And one of the reasons is because of the storage requirements and the amount of use at Highway 213. So for all those reasons, those are kind of the pros. There's definitely some cons to this, and they're going to go through that and talk about it. So with that, I'll turn it over.
Before you go there, can I ask for clarification? Now, you called the grant that we got from Metro the same name as the one that we have. I'm assuming they're not the same grants. You called it the Metro Enhancement Grant?
Oh, yes, you're right. I meant
And I thought, I didn't think we had that much money for the Metro Enhancement.
Yes, you're right. My mistake. There's a meeting coming up on the Metro Regional Enhancement Plan. So if you're planning to apply for the grant, I guess there's a little plug for that. No, I meant Regional Flexible Funds. Grant.
Okay, perfect. That's what I thought. So I just wanted to clarify that for the community because they're going to say, wait, you didn't tell us we had $3.4 million for the Metro Enhancement Grant. I said, we don't.
So I don't know. Let's see.
John, one more point of clarification. We talk about these changes. They are to be permanent changes, not changes just during the course of construction.
Right, and in fact, throughout this presentation, because we've had that confusion in the past where we flip back and forth,
right.
This is pretty focused on what's the permanent fix.
Okay, thanks.
There are elements of that benefit the during construction, but really we're talking about permanent fixes. All right. I was going to take on a little bit of this, but this just again shows the entire corridor. The same corridor that is shown up on the board. One of the key elements along this is just how we do the spacing of signals, and those signals all have pedestrian crossing opportunities, as well as the mid-block crossings, which are reflected with the pedestrian rapid flashing symbol there. So really, this is a key corridor for the motorist transit users and pedestrians. So just wanting to go through this, I think Fred's going to talk about it in much more detail, but the spacing as we have it right now with the various crossings was a pretty big thing to try to balance so that pedestrians would not, in this case, the furthest a pedestrian may have to walk is, what would that be? 475 feet if you're in the middle in between those two crosswalks that are 950 feet apart. So trying to minimize the amount of distance a pedestrian has to cross before they have a safe crossing option. So Fred, I don't know, you want to take it from
Yeah,
here?
and just to continue on that, we're trying to look at the crossings at where the destinations would be and why would you want to cross. So getting these at an equal spacing to align with those destinations was one of the project goals. Especially as we get down to the south end where they do start spacing a little further apart, 615 and 950. There's not as much to get to on the east side of Beaver Creek, and we're trying to hit in the middle of where those destinations were, i.e. the post office, Little Cooperstown and that, shopping center, and then OC Point at the far south end. And as John was saying, what brought us originally to the dual left turn lanes for the southbound at Beaver Creek was the signal operations down at 213. When we did our original analysis, we realized that right turn lane in the midday and the PM peak hour creates a 500 and an 800 foot queue, respectively. And that's what drove us to look at the numbers and say, can we identify how many of these cars are just cutting through the corridor? And is there a way to divert them out of the corridor? Which is what got us to the dual lefts at Beaver Creek in the first place. And with that reduction, we take those queue lengths down to 200 feet and 300 feet. So we're no longer spilling back 2 or 3 intersections and creating unsafe conditions way beyond the 213 intersection. Additionally, those delays from that reduce 20 to 30 seconds as well. So I know we're increasing some delay at Beaver Creek, but we're offsetting it at the other end, and also by diverting those cars out of the corridor, we're reducing the delays at all the intersections in between the 2 points as well. If we kind of taken a microscopic look at just Beaver Creek, and I just wanted to bring us back out and look at the whole mile now and show the benefit of what these dual lefts are doing and why we proposed them to begin with. And as we proposed them, then we realized the benefit of construction traffic. We're like, hey, if we put these in first, we can divert some of these vehicles around the construction zone at the onset of the project rather than waiting for the very end of the project to implement it.
So another piece kind of as we were looking at that is we looked at the travel patterns and the number of vehicles that were turning on and off of Molalla, and there was a clear amount of cars that were driving through the corridor and not exiting or entering onto Molalla. So those trips, in our view, were a cut through. They could use another corridor, and they could use a 5-lane corridor along Beaver Creek Road.
Where were they going?
They're all going down to 213.
So they're just they're just on Molalla Avenue going all the way down to 213?
They're not stopping at a destination. They're not going home. They're not coming from home. They're cutting through.
Well, I do that sometimes if I'm going to Winco. I mean, I'm coming from my house and I'm not stopping anywhere along Molalla Avenue. I'm going directly to Winco. So, I mean, is that the kind of trip you're talking about?
A trip that doesn't have a destination along the corridor.
Yeah, I do it a lot.
Well, I think a lot of people do, and I certainly, I don't consider that a cut through.
I don't either.
I guess, so the words that you're using are interesting. It seems to me if you're heading south on 213, that's the shortest, that's the most direct route. There's not a lot of stuff keeping you from taking that route. So I'm not sure that people would turn off of the most direct route just to go to a wider road. If there's little inconvenience at the end. I guess it sounds like you think there's going to be enough inconvenience somewhere on that route that they will choose to go a longer route to go around to take Beaver Creek Road and go to 213.
And that's a little bit of a personal preference. Would you
see, I
take a
wouldn't do
longer
that.
route?
Nope.
A longer distance that's shorter time?
Nope.
So once we implement the project along Beaver Creek Road to enhance all the traffic signals and retime them with the most current traffic controllers, we should see more efficiency in the Beaver Creek Road corridor.
I don't remember, there was a percentage of trips. Obviously, we're not going to turn all those folks, but it was a pretty low number. Was trying to get the trips to reduce by 20% or something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
Is that our goal? That's one thing I want to make the public aware of. What is the goal as far as vehicular traffic for Malala Avenue? Is it to discourage people from using it, encourage people to use it, expect we're going to handle the current level of traffic more efficiently? What's the ultimate goal from a vehicular traffic standpoint of this project?
So kind of going back to that big picture, the goal of the project is to create a safe corridor for walking, biking, access to transit, but also to address vehicles. So the grant funding is focused on bike, walking, and access to transit. So we also, as a project team, realized that there is some efficiencies and things we can focus on with vehicles. And so as we do that, we look at safety. So really, from a project perspective, the number one goal is safety.
And I get that, but the question is more simple than that. Are we encouraging people to use this avenue, or are we trying to discourage them?
I think we're trying to encouraging biking, walking, and transit use. And by doing that with RRFBs and impacts to your ability to travel, swiftly down the corridor, it by default discourages vehicle traffic.
Okay, discouraging vehicle traffic. Thank you.
I think we're trying to eke out all the capacity we can get out of this boulevard is what we're really trying to get to, which means that to make it efficient for those that are using it, whether they're driving through it without stopping or driving through it mid-block and getting off somewhere else. Either way, we need it to function the best that it can, and the dual lefts at Beaver Creek Road help make that a better or another good option for somebody who's really trying to get to Highway 213. That's what I think we're trying to do. We're trying to balance the fact that this boulevard is at capacity today and will be at capacity shortly after building it, but it should be safer. That makes sense?
I think a lot of people, based on my knowledge and what I have to do every morning getting to the high school, I always come up Malala, take a left onto Beaver Creek. So where the two lefts would be is what my normal route is. But as soon as Myers Road opens, I'm not going that way anymore. And I don't think most people that go to the high school go that way anymore. They're going to go straight down Malala Avenue, and they're going to go out to Myers Road and get back to the high school so they avoid 213 altogether. I think a lot of people do that. So I think, a lot of this we aren't going to know until Myers Road opens up and really tells us what that does to affect people's... Yeah, because I think it's going to change people's directions a lot. Although I'll probably still take a left on Beaver Creek because there's no Dutch Bros on the other side, but whatever. But I think once that road opens up, I think a lot of traffic that's coming through 213 from the high school in the mornings and evenings are going to take the back roads from Myers Road, which will split people some onto Malala and some onto Myers, which is good. But it'll be interesting to see how that all works when it's open.
Yeah.
Well,
I have another question after Frank.
Well, to be clear, I'm not, and I don't think this commission is here to redesign this thing.
No.
What I really want is there are specific questions and comments by members of the community, and I hope this presentation answers those. And there are very specific questions. And, in my mind, if this project turns out well done, praise and honors to the people that did it. And if it doesn't turn out well done, then there should be consequences, performance consequences. So your reputations are on line. You're the professionals. You did it. But I also want to make sure that the people in this community are heard. And even if they don't get what they want, make them understand why you can't or won't do what is being asked. That's the purpose of this work session in my mind, not for this commission to become traffic engineers. So please proceed.
Commissioner McGriff, did you have
Yeah, just some more clarification. Again, I have to use myself as an example because I can't speak for other drivers. So when you talk about the people like me who are going to drive down to Winco without stopping, did you look at that only from one direction? Or you're looking for people who are going beyond, because, when I go to Winco, it's just that short little section till you get to the turn lane. And I will tell you, the reason I go that way is because the stuff that I have to do, I do everything on that one side of the road that I have to stop at if I need to go. And then on my way back from Winco, I'm on the going home side of the road, so I'm going to this place and this place, so I'm only making right turns. So my directional, so when I'm on my way back from there, I am stopping a lot of places on Molalla Avenue because I'm only making right turns. I'm trying to avoid turns where I'm crossing left just because the going home side of the road is easier. So are you looking at both directional ways, or are you only looking at people going from out to 213 and then wherever they're going? Maybe they're not going to Winco, maybe they're going to Evans Farms, or I don't know.
I'd have to say we looked at purely the southbound just because of that right turn queue and its spillback beyond Sebastian and Lazy Creek, and further just putting us over capacity at the ODOT signal, which would require potentially a second right turn lane, which then is a whole new signal rebuild there, just like we had to do at Myers.
Which end of Beaver Creek which end of Molalla am I at? Am I at the
213.
South end.
I'm at the
south
south
end.
where right by the school.
Yes.
Okay.
So that right turn lane for southbound or technically eastbound to southbound, that right turn onto 213 is what drove us to look at the numbers. It was just, 635 cars taking a right turn there in the afternoon.
What's the peak hour that you're looking at?
5 o'clock.
Okay.
So evening time, everybody's off work.
Yeah.
That's a lot of cars.
Yeah, I generally don't
So we're like,
go
that's
that
a high,
time
it just,
for its reasons.
for us, it just, that's a high number. Let's see if we can figure out what's going on. It's causing an 800-foot queue, which makes that section of the road unsafe. And so we just started looking at the numbers and all the way back to 213 and realized there's a huge number of cars just driving through the corridor. We don't expect to deter them all. We're just trying to take a small percentage of that and get them to the major arterial roadways of Beaver Creek and 213. Molalla Avenue, for this section, we're trying to look at it as a collector road, not a major arterial roadway. If we really wanted to improve car capacity, we'd go 5 lanes and then do everything else.
It just makes people go faster.
Okay, let's move on.
Okay, so what we've prepared in these upcoming slides is 4 options for how we could address the Molalla and Beaver Creek intersection. And so, excuse me, at your dais is kind of 2 handouts that I'll kind of walk you through here in a minute. But a little bit of information about these 4 options. They are all based on 2040 volumes. So instead of looking at just today's traffic, we want to make sure we're accommodating future. So we look at 2024 traffic volumes. In order to provide an apples to apples comparison, the signalized intersection is all reviewed with the same cycle length of 140 seconds. And so although the option selected, we would optimize the signal timing. For this exercise, it's all comparatively the same. So on the handouts will be a couple of pieces of information. When we look at an intersection, there are 2 ways to analyze it from a technical perspective. A level of service, which is an A through F, like a report card grade, and then a volume to capacity, which is essentially a percentage. So it's shown as a 0.1 or a 0.91 or 0.98 type of number. So those are the technical ways we look at this. The level of service, I think, is a little more easy to understand, like a report card. And then the other thing we're sharing tonight is intersection delay and movement delays. And so those are in seconds. And so those are something that the driver feels when you're driving through that intersection. So we felt that was a way to kind of compare these options for you. And then I'll walk you through a little bit of the pros and cons of these options.
So a quick question, is option A on this the do
Existing.
nothing option? You leave it as is?
Yes, so option A is
Just want to be sure.
Existing.
maintain the existing lane
Okay.
alignments.
All right.
And so that would put everything back how it is today. Option B is the recommendation of the technical team, based on kind of a lot of these things we've shared with you tonight. Option C was presented by a citizen to the Transportation Advisory Committee, and so we've compared that one. And option D was presented at the previous work session with the commission. And so we've taken these and kind of laid out those lane alignments and assignments of how we would use the pavement. So you can see those differences. The next slide,
And as far as we know, those are the options that have been either analyzed by us or recommended by the commission.
So when do we want to talk about as part of this, when would we like to talk about the letter received from Hilltop Mall? I think it's germane to these option selections or discussion about, since we're not going to make a decision tonight, but I think that we need.
Option D.
Yeah, I think we
so
need to
at
talk
this
about it.
point, the four options presented, although they do show a right turn exclusive lane, they are all within our existing pavement. So none of these options tonight show a right turn pocket that would be on the Hilltop Mall property. So option A, the technical team recommendation, the red lines show in 2040 for midday peak, so this is lunchtime peak, how far back we would expect the cars to queue or stack. So you can see the label that's shown is, the first is the letter, so that's the level of service. So the report card grade for that specific movement. And then the number following that is the seconds of delay that movement would experience. And so you can see those comparisons. On option A, you can see this line, they start to merge together. So what that's showing you is the queue of cars waiting to turn left is going to spill back into your through lane.
This is the existing condition.
Yes. Yes, so I won't kind of walk through them all. You have a copy of that. But what I wanted to kind of share is some things we see when we look at these. So options B, C, and D all implement the dual left options, both for northbound and southbound. And so you can see in those that the southbound queue, so moving down the page, that red line is long. It extends back nearly to Warner Milne. The level of service is a D, so not a great grade on your report card. And your delay in seconds is, 58 to 44 seconds. So in options C and D, which those two options have only one lane northbound, you see the same queue all the way back. And I apologize because my lettering covered up the Claremont, but Claremont is this intersection right down here. So all of these are exactly the same scale and extent. So on C and D, when you remove that second northbound lane, you see the queue of cars back through the signalized intersection. In one case, we get a report card grade F and a 91-second delay. So that's going to start impacting the operations at the signals at the end.
So does this not make the point that Mr. Danielson said, that B gives you that 58 or 59-second delay? As a commercial venture, does that not restrict access to his properties, which is his concern? Am I reading this correctly?
There would be traffic congestion in front of that area during the peak hours, so at lunchtime and in the PM peak. Times outside of that, we wouldn't see queues this long. We don't have a morning peak. We really just have a lunchtime and a afternoon peak.
I wonder what's
They're
going on at lunchtime.
about an hour.
So interpreting this, if we wanted to minimize the effect on that commercial property, would the correct choice be A, do nothing? Is that what this tells us? Okay.
Yeah, if that were the only
I'm just trying to interpret what I'm seeing in front of me,
Yep,
so I'm
no.
not
I
misinterpreting.
am too, and it still looks like A is the best option. They have the shortest red lines, right?
So
It's
yes,
the shortest wait time.
If you're looking at the project as an intersection project, then yes, option A has the least impact. So then we have to think about what happens down at 213 in Malala. We will fail that intersection. It'll get an F, and it'll be over 1.0.
Which is essentially, by trying to remove traffic from Malala, we are directing it to that intersection, 213 and Beaver Creek.
You mean the failed
I'm-
intersection at Malala and
Yes,
213?
if I
okay.
meant 213 in Malala.
See, the other thing is, there's a current state of affairs and there's a future state of affairs. And I want to anticipate that. I have no idea if the county will ever get their monies together to put a courthouse up there. So then we'll have that effect. I have no idea for sure if any industrial sites in there intend to increase the size of their business, which will increase the volume of traffic through here. So I'm just trying to anticipate the future. I mean, when I see this, the difference between A and B is 150% in terms of the length of the line. And that's not my only concern. I just want to make sure that I'm interpreting these drawings correctly. So please proceed.
Yeah, so to me, a couple things. We're looking at 2040 plans, and the last presentation we talked about is this intersection of Beaver Creek and Malala is something that we need to stay focused on, and probably in that 5 to 10 year period, we're gonna have to make some real changes there, right? But this is not anticipating those. This is trying to live within the existing pavement.
Right.
So, so I just think it's important to do that. The other thing that jumped out at me pretty strongly was there was a lot of interest in looking at the analysis for C and D, which were taking the northbound traffic and converting that to more of a one lane through lane scenario. And I guess we think it's obvious that those options shouldn't be on the table. And so that's why our recommendation stays with option B. We've got other reasons that we want to talk about as to why we would move to option B beyond even what Dana's talking about with the 213 and Malala congestion.
As again, I want to be responsive to citizen concerns.
Right.
This project rests with you and you and you, and the success or failure rests with you. But we need to listen to the community
I
too.
don't think backing up to,
I thought the preferred recommendation on option B, though, was that this is still showing oh, that's northbound. Okay, never mind. Never mind.
Well, we all know ideally we'd have an extra lane, right? So this southbound right turn at Beaver Creek, we could accommodate that. But that's, unless somebody wants to give us a deal on another 15 feet of land, we don't have that option right now. And quite honestly, this project north of Beaver Creek Road was not, it's just sort of it's influenced by the project itself. It wasn't part of the project.
Right. We always have this challenge with project limits. You define a project, and then when you kind of look at it in detail, it's like, well, you got to really tie it in properly. And that's what we tried to do with this.
Yeah, I believe it was described to me from a citizen as Project Creep.
well, at least on that side.
Yeah, but I feel like this is the first time we've heard about a backup at Malala and 213, about that intersection failing. I mean, tonight you're
I think that's true.
presenting
I think
that
that's true.
the reason that you started looking at this intersection as well.
Well, I mean, it's the first time we've shared that with you. We've considered it as a project team for some time, but it hasn't been so clearly articulated until we really started talking about this whole problem and the whole concern from the community. So,
Okay.
There's no way to do option B within the existing right-of-way?
All of these are
option
within
B
the
is what we're
existing-
recommending within the existing.
Within the existing right-of-way
Well,
with,
yeah, generally yes. So
Okay.
option B is what we're recommending. So we should move to that next
generally,
slide.
what does generally mean?
I mean, for instance, along the care center at the corner there, their development is dedicating additional right-of-way to do even what we're proposing to do. But it still is, even with that, there's still just one through lane, right? If we wanted 2 through lanes for that side of Malala
intersection.
Avenue, we'd have to take even more, right away from Marquis and from Don Pedro's. And we should, that
move on.
shows up in the
Yeah.
next slide.
Yeah, I guess the only comment I'll say, so it sounds like the public comment letter that's on our desk is a result of the conversations that we had at the last
Yes.
meeting.
Yes.
Where we only had 30 minutes, and one of the things we were talking about was adding an additional right turn lane, which is not in any of these options, correct?
Right.
Right. It was shown just to kind of
As a maybe.
as well, and something that needs to be considered in the future.
Okay.
Are we going to have any option tonight to, not that it's testimony, but to get any information from a couple people that I see in the audience that I know this is very near and dear to their hearts?
Well, at the rate we're going, probably not, because we need to speed up. I
Okay.
have a feeling we have a lot to cover, and we're not making
All right.
fast progress.
So kind of this next slide was really to kind of facilitate discussion on how staff should move forward with this intersection.
Well, yes, and I just want to reiterate, so the issues are without dedication of additional right-of-way on the US Bank corner, right? Is that the US Bank corner? So the idea of putting it back the way it is today would do a couple things. It would definitely prohibit us from having the future left that takes you to the Clackamas County campus, right? That is going to become a problem very, very quickly for us, right? Right now, we're just showing it as a space, but once we put those 2 through lanes back, we lose that option. And I think
You know,
that's
on northbound.
critical, yes.
The
Dan,
yellow
can you point to
hatchet.
it?
Yes.
So we're talking about the hatched area, right? That's not too far off. The reason it's not in this project is because of project creep. And in order to make that happen, we've got some major signalization improvements to have happen. But we know that that's not too far off. The idea of, again, leaving the dual lefts and adding another through lane has a big impact on Marquis. Even eliminating that future left where it's hatched in yellow, we have a problem today with the drop lane or that merge lane. It's a what we heard a lot from the community as well on this was, oh, we were happy to see that go away because people rush through that, they get on the other side of the intersection, and then they're jockeying, right? And
People are not nice right there.
No.
I can tell you. They're not nice
We're
depending on either side of that.
problem.
But
Everybody's going to
yes.
be nice when we're done, I'm sure.
Yeah.
They're nice if you're on the right lane.
No, they're not nice in either way. Either lane.
The problem we have is that it doesn't meet any standard today, right? And so what I'm hearing from Gittleson is that in order to make that happen, we need about 600 feet of transition, which puts the end of that transition at the crosswalk. So not only would we need, more right-of-way from both Don Chico's and Marquis,
And possibly the apartments.
and possibly the apartments, we're bringing all that jockeying traffic together right where we have a proposed crosswalk. So there's all that going on, and this design allows for at least the one, again, northbound left turn pocket. It gives it a lot more space to make that, to store up in there. And so I think that's an important element. So I'm trying, and then I mentioned the safety of the dual lefts, right? If we leave it as a single left, we're not in love with we like the efficiency that these, what are they called?
Flashing yellow.
Flashing yellow or permissive left turns create, but they also have some safety issues with that volume of traffic and that large of an intersection. So we'd like to fix that. And we'd like to discourage some traffic from using Malala or encourage some traffic to use Beaver Creek Road, however you want to look at it.
Well, I would love to discourage the speedway that happens in that merge lane of people trying to merge and get around people and all that, leading up to a very congested area of people not driving 30 to 35 mile an hour of racing through there. So
You're talking about on the south, excuse me,
Marquee.
the,
where the merge lane is.
yeah.
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 Well,
What I call the raceway.
Oh, okay, I thought you meant on the opposite side, on the US Bank side. That's where there a little bit of the raceway is.
That happens, yeah.
Because I will admit, I've done it.
So the
so we
largest
have-
opponent to this is not here tonight. This was the preferred design, and unless there's major objections from this commission from other people up here, I'm not sure why we need to keep drawing this out and this conversation out any longer. If you do not like this and you really want to keep talking about other alternatives, speak now or forever hold your peace. Otherwise, this is the preferred option, and we need to have significant reason, I think, to continue this discussion, to keep looking into other alternatives.
I said my piece, I'm not the designer, and people that design it, they have to live with the consequences of success or lack of success. So I'm not gonna redesign it. I listened to the citizens, I brought forth their concerns, I gave them to staff, I hope staff has worked with them. But the outcome in the end, we're policymakers, we're not traffic engineers. So it rests with staff as to the success of this project or lack of success.
I think what I'm having a problem with is that there's just too much stuff on that side of the intersection, so I can't see clearly where the two lanes are supposed to be. You're saying that the yellow hash stuff is it supposed to be a turn lane?
It's a second future northbound left turn.
Okay,
Well,
where
it'll
the
be a-
yellow is.
it'll be a
And then-
concrete
And then where's
barrier?
the regular turn
No,
lane that's
okay.
already there?
So the turn lane that'll be there at the end of the project will be this one here,
Okay,
in exactly the same spot it's in today. So this yellow hatching would be actual yellow paint on the roadway, not a raised median, just a paint. So that when we come back and we have funding to change out the traffic signal pole and the mast arm to provide the signal head aligned with the new lane, we would remove the striping
and create a lane?
and
Dual,
create
yeah.
that
Okay,
second
so where's
left
the
turn lane.
existing turn lane?
It's in the same location as the proposed turn lane.
Okay, so where your mark thing, what's that right there that you have? Isn't that a turn?
That's the left turn arrow.
That's what I said, that's the existing one that's there right now.
Yes, and it goes probably to about here where it transitions.
Sure.
Somewhere in here to a left turn lane in. And so we would gain that storage space in the interim. And then when we move forward with the second lane, we would add the second lane's storage capacity.
Okay,
Quite honestly, Commissioner McGriff, this intersection is so complex. We're not even talking about other concerns that were brought up. We're not even talking about, that if we have a right turn and through lane going southbound, that'd be with. What happens when someone's in that crosswalk and now you have to wait for them to get through that? I mean, we are not gonna solve this. We're gonna pick we need to allow people to proceed with their expertise, and as I said, bear the consequence
okay, well,
unless. And we're faced with we want to get this quoted and bid out, so we want to.
Right, so I mean, our thoughts are if the commission were to direct us to do something other than what we show here, so go, and the one that seems to get the most support is put it back the way it was, right? That has impacts that, in our opinion, as we think about the crosswalk, the merge lane that doesn't really have enough room for merge, is we probably should eliminate this segment of the project between Claremont and Beaver Creek Road. And we don't think that's the best answer. The success factor that you're talking about, to me, is measured in this is going to be a safer intersection that's going to be more ready for change in the future. That's the success factor. Will we result in more congestion because of this on the leg between Colton or Warner Milne? The modeling shows that we will.
Yes,
So,
it does.
this is, as far as today's show, this is an example of compromise number one on this project, and this project is a compromise. And we're trying to balance those compromises in the best way we can to accommodate those other factors. Safety first, bikes, pedestrians, and driver accommodations, and we think this does a good job of it. And remember, those backup numbers that you looked at were 2040 build-out numbers.
Not
We're going to
today's
keep an eye on this intersection, and yes, at some day, I suspect the letter that we got from the property owner on the corner there is legitimate. I fully understand that. The impacts of what would be asking for would be significant. We'd rather not ask. I'd not ask for it today because we don't know how strong the need is.
Well, we're only
And I
talking
think-
about the south side, though.
Right.
Okay.
But I mean, you asked about the letter, and so I'm just saying,
Yeah.
I really don't want the city to have to ask for that. And let's see where this intersection goes. Traffic routes will change. Instead of coming to this intersection to make that right turn, will they choose to turn at Warner Milne? I think they will. We'll see. But success is not just how much congestion we cause or not, right? It's about hopefully we result in a much safer intersection, and hopefully we have an intersection that's ready for improvements in the short term, because we know that they're going to be required in the short
And
term.
if you were to proceed, we need to be prepared to document that success in terms that the community understands. Not just we did it, we never reported back. It's going to be criticized, right? That's a given. Okay, what did we do right? And
So I'm okay with the suggestion by Commissioner O'Donnell and Commissioner Lyle Smith, as long as we're still only talking about the south side. So I don't think we need to beat this horse to death anymore.
well,
Okay.
Okay, we've just got a short amount of time, so I'm going to kind of brief over these next couple of topics. Mid-block crossing at Southridge Center. Again, this is all safety focused. As John mentioned, medians are an access management tool. They increase roadway capacity, manage congestion, and reduce crashes by removing conflict points. The First Street signal, First Street, based on today's traffic volumes, meets 2 traffic signal warrants. It meets the 4-hour and the 8-hour warrant. In the future, it meets 3 warrants. This intersection was not studied in the TSP, so we were not aware at the start of the project that it would need a traffic signal. That was identified as we did our corridor evaluation.
When you, so a quick question on that. When you did your traffic study as part of this project, your modeling, what are the vehicles that are causing those warrants? Is it semis, industrial vehicles, or is it general passenger vehicles that are using First Street to go around Fred Meyer, or just using First Street for whatever reason? Is there a predominant? Because I know there's a lot of conversation about the fact that, well, we're adding a signal, and I thought the goal was to try to move traffic to Beaver Creek Road, and this may encourage traffic to just use Malala even more at that intersection.
So the warrant analysis really just looks at the number of vehicles, not the type of vehicles. So the 8-hour and the 4-hour peak, or the volumes of warrant 1 and 2, it's just looking at how many vehicles are on Malala, how many are accessing it from First Street, and just a threshold there to see what it's looking at is the mainline traffic in Malala is so heavy that it creates an unsafe condition for cars trying to enter onto the facility.
to add to Commissioner Lyle Smith's statement, people are more prone to use that First Street entrance onto Malala if there's in fact a controlled signalization of it. And if our goal is to minimize that traffic, we're essentially encouraging it. By the same token, if we send everybody out the other way on the Beaver Creek Road, we're going to load that intersection. So it's a no-win.
It's a very busy system. The one benefit of sending it up to Beaver Creek in 213 is the movement we're adding the volume to was one of the lower volume movements that is not causing issues at that intersection. Because we did look at that intersection because we know there's history there and capacity issues. But the eastbound to southbound right turn was one of the lower volumes.
So this light isn't about reducing traffic or increasing traffic use. It was all about improving safety for the existing amount of traffic that's already using this signal.
Yes, and this was traffic in November of 2018 when the now Public Works building was sitting empty. So before anything came in there, the other place was already moved out. The other thing it did was it helped align with one of the goals of increased pedestrian safety.
That's pedestrian
We
crossings.
added now 2 more protected crosswalks.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't argue with that. It's just, you're
It
gonna
was a
get this
combination of all
feedback.
those reasons.
You're gonna get feedback from the community that once we moved into the neighborhood, then we got a signal. But what you said is correct, it increases safety.
The mid-block crossing near the post office has been a question. We've met with the fire department, we've met with the post office, and at this point, we've moved the crosswalk a little bit north, so it will be kind of between those 2 driveways for the post office. That's as far north as we can move it without impacting the left turn movement into the Biscuits and Miller Paint complex. So if we move that further, then we would be blocking the lefts into that complex.
Okay, and you're aware that the citizen complaint was that when you cross between the 2 driveways to the mail office, the post office, now the citizen is faced with crossing a driveway. You're answering the question as you see fit.
Well, yeah, I mean, we acknowledge that there's more driveways to cross if you're coming from Garden Meadow. The current location of the crossing is what it is. It's not been a safe location for a pedestrian to be. We've seen just the left turns out of Wilco driveway and the left turns off of Garden Meadow. The left turns out of Garden Meadow, they don't have a center, we calling it refuge, or they don't have that center turn lane to turn into to find a gap in the traffic as they move to the north because of that median. And same thing is true for the Wilco folks. And then you put a pedestrian right in the middle of that. It's just not safe. And then, I think we were, again, still trying to figure out spacing on, between these crosswalks and trying to balance the spacing of those crosswalks from First Street to, some reasonable distance. I forget what the distance is between those 2 now, but it's much more aligned with our overall goal to spread those out equally.
Addressing some of the comment log concerns, I think we've talked a little bit about the First Street. I think a lot of the concerns in the Gaffney Lane neighborhood were the medians we've talked about. There were other items, but due to time, the other concern that was brought to our attention as well with regarding the response was concerns with safety related to pavement markings and signage behind the Goodwill and AutoZone. The response in the comment log was that we've spoke with the property manager for the complex, and they stated they've recently done work to address the area. We have a good working relationship with the property manager for that complex, and staff can continue to work with them to see what kind of safety improvements they can implement through there. The comment didn't state more than pavement markings or signage, and it didn't explicitly explain what the concern was besides striping and signage.
Well, they have repainted it, and so it's definitely better than it was. And I think the intersection improvement in general will be super helpful.
Super quickly on project funding, we've got many sources that will help fund this project. I'm not going to walk through it all. The total funding for the project is at $13.5 million. Again, the project costs align with that $13.5 million.
Back up.
Oh, yes,
Pavement maintenance fees.
yes.
So when I think of maintenance, I think replacing tires on my car or, painting the house, not building a new house. So how do we justify using pavement maintenance fees, which are supposed to be used for maintenance around the city, for a brand new project?
Yes, so our pavement maintenance fees do a couple of different types of things. We do slurry seal and crack seal, those kind of what you would, I think, more maintenance. But we also, on a regular basis, have what we would call a full street reconstruct project. So most recently, High Street was a full reconstruct project that was funded with pavement maintenance dollars. So when the roadway is deteriorated to a state where we can't just grind off the top and put a little bit of new shiny asphalt on, we have to rebuild the full section. And so Malala Avenue is at a point where it needs full reconstruction.
Okay.
Let the record show that Mayor Dan Holliday has joined us.
And those pavement maintenance fees are used entirely on the roadway.
Yes,
It's
so
not
I've
for-
taken the entire cost estimate and nitpicked it and assigned each bid item to a budget. So water line work is funded with water rates and SDCs. Pavement work is funded, so I've picked it apart. Project cost, very quickly, tonight on the consent agenda is a contract amendment to move forward those construction services for the Malala project. That's that $1.1 million. We estimate construction at $9.7 million and have a contingency of about 5%, about $500,000. And then kind of here's our project status next steps. So if we're moving forward with the technical team option, those plans are ready to go. We could get those out to bid late this month, kind of walking through those process and have construction as early as mid-July. If we're moving forward with another option, you know, that timeline looks a little bit different.
Okay, I think we covered that already.
That's all.
Go ahead, just finish the meeting.
Any other questions? I think we've grilled you with questions throughout. Didn't save any. All right. I think
Thank you
have
for your
clear
time,
direction.
and if you need to wallpaper your room, we've got Malala Avenue corridor for your room.
All right, thanks. This meeting's adjourned.
Okay. So we'll be back in about 10 minutes.